A huge warm welcome to Art Gallery Explorer, art lovers. Art Gallery Explorer is the vlog that explores the art scene in London, the southeast of England, and sometimes, like today, beyond. I'm up here in Manchester at the Whitworth Gallery to explore the first ever survey by artist Barbara Walker. Now in her 60s, she's actually only recently been getting the credit that she deserves as one of our major artists. I saw her work in Entangled Pasts at the Royal Academy, and The Time Is Always Now at the National Portrait Gallery, where examples of her Vanishing Point series were on show. And of course, the scathing Burden of Proof was nominated for the Turner Prize in 2023, and in my opinion should have won. Yeah, and I think that Barbara Walker is still underrated. It's not that she's underappreciated. She's been nominated for the Turner Prize. She's won the John Evelyn Drawing Prize. She's a member of the Royal Academy. But I would like her to be more in the conversation when it comes to us discussing who our greatest contemporary British artists are. So it's really apt that Barbara Walker being here, a first major survey at a major institution, the Whitworth Gallery in Manchester, is on now. It's transferring, by the way, to Bristol, so do keep posted for that. And I am really, really excited to go inside, and this is free, as you can see, and it's on until the 26th of January 2025. The exhibition starts with two recent works, a self-portrait which casts Walker as Leda from the myth Leda and the Swan, defiant in front of an emasculated Zeus, and Rosemary 123, a tribute which you can see here to frontline workers during the pandemic, and also a portrait of one of Barbara Walker's friends, Rosemary, who works for the NHS, and this work was actually donated to the NHS after it was produced. Private Face, the first main section of the exhibition, contained many works I have not seen before. I'm more familiar with Walker as a drawer, but these paintings attempt to redefine perceptions of Black British life. Eddie Chambers said back in 2002, Barbara Walker's paintings represent a living, breathing document of the Black Birmingham experience. Relatives in Jamaica, roots in Africa, home in Basil Heath or Edgbaston or Handsworth. Residents whose accents are local, yet at the same time resonate with a wide range of diasporic twangs. The Private Face series represents Walker's first body of work and portrays friends, relatives, and everyday Birmingham scenes. I saw flashes of the aims of Claudette Johnson in the attempts to redefine perceptions of Black British life. It also links to Hervin Anderson in her portrayal of the barber shop as a central place within this Black British life, something you're about to see in a minute. And indeed, in the boundary paintings, Walker said, I wanted to present a sensitive, empathetic interpretation of one of the very few spaces in which black men can freely congregate and fraternize. I have tried to capture the sense of trust, mutual respect, and affection which exists in such a place. And she also recognizes that as a woman in these paintings, she's an outsider in what is a male sphere. These works certainly challenge my image of the practice of Walker. I saw her as primarily concerned with big themes because the works I'd seen, Vanishing Point and Burden of Proof, were doing that. But these are much more intimate works, and it was really interesting that the exhibition showed how she started off before moving away from this. The Vanishing Point series is probably Walker's most well-known series of works, and I've seen them in a couple of exhibitions, as I explained in my introduction. To date, Walker's made over 50 Vanishing Point works, 12 of which are in this exhibition. And in this series, she turns her attention towards European old master paintings from the 16th to the 18th century. Where black figures are portrayed, they're nearly always unnamed, marginalised figures. What's more, they're often occupying a role of servitude at the beck and call of white figures which dominate the works. As Walker explains, many viewers don't even see the black figures in the original painting. Walker aims to rectify this and transform the hierarchies of power. She uses the technique of blind embossed print, reducing the colour for old masters down to a bland outline, which you can just about see, as you can see here. She then reinstates a single black figure in exquisite detail. The exhibition says that those once overlooked and unseen are now highly visible. Vanishing Point 12 refers to the story of Judith and Holofernes. Judith assassinates Holofernes, and in Veronese's version is assisted by a black maid who Walker brings to the fore in the painting. Vanishing Point 25 refers to a painting where a non-white figure is actually named as possibly Ibrahim, a groom, an unusual occurrence in an old master painting. Making the Moment is a subgroup of works in the Vanishing Point series. It takes its name from the theatrical turn for spotlighting central action on stage. And Walker meticulously redraws the work in full before applying a layer of mylar paper to obscure all but the single black figure, providing a spotlight for the often forgotten. Soft Power is the newest of the works. It celebrates the presence of Caribbean heritage in Britain in the form of 13 graphite and Conte crayon drawings. It shows 6 portraits of first and second generation Windrush migrants who are based in Manchester and who actually came to the opening of this exhibition. And they are surrounded by archival footage, as you can see here, of newly arrived Commonwealth citizens. It's interesting, this work, because it is a much more positive and colour-filled and beautiful piece than the burden of proof work. And you can almost see it as a positive echo of that work, whereas Burden of Proof, which was nominated for the Turner Prize, is about injustice. This is looking at the other side of that story, if you like, and I really love this work, which takes the form of wallpaper. And Walker produced this work, having interacted with the Whitworth collections, and it is in fact her first work, which has been produced as wallpaper. Shock and Awe sees Walker delve into National War Archives to recover the forgotten contributions of black servicemen and women to build British and European war efforts. These works contain contemporary soldiers, as you can see here, who have fought in recent conflicts for the British Army, as well as historic ones. Her research encountered a lack of African and Caribbean presence in official records as she interrogated our national history of the conflicts which helped define our nation. And so she supplemented the gaps with material found on eBay and in personal family records. It's in this work that we see Walker as quite a controversial artistic disruptor. She uses techniques of erasure, such as blind embossed print, that we've already seen in the Vanishing Point series, to powerfully disrupt the official historical record. And we see this disruption very actively in the 2 tableau works, where images are imposed on official newspaper articles from 1914 on the eve of the First World War. I say that this is controversial because, as you can see here, European service women and men are rendered almost entirely absent from the pictures using the techniques we've described, whereas service women and men from the British Empire's colonies are brought very much to the fore. It'd be interesting to see what you think about this technique and what she's trying to do in the comments. In a show full of highly charged works, louder than words, in my opinion, is the most highly charged. And in Walker's own words from the exhibition, she said, "Solomon is my son, and I remember when he was first stopped and searched like it was yesterday. I felt helpless, because as a parent you're there to protect your children, and I couldn't do anything to stop it. He felt disrespected and embarrassed, and for me it was the thought of him being dehumanized. He was angry, and I was too.
I channeled that anger into my work. My emotions are very much embedded in these drawings. I see the search record as a kind of drawing done by the police officer, which is why I wanted to draw on it to introduce the mother's hand. These highly charged words are actually an artistic turning point. It was the first time that she used official documentation from the state as an expanded form of portraiture. And we can trace a line from these works in the 2000s through to Burden of Proof, that Turner nominated response to the Windrush scandal, which is still to come. In response to her son being repeatedly stopped and searched by the police, she began to draw not just him very, very tenderly, but also the locations where the encounters took place. And you saw a few of those on the yellow police dockets earlier in this section. She enlarged the yellow police dockets, as you can see here, so they become almost grandiose in scale. And there's a really marked contrast between the yellow blandness of the state and then the very, very human drawing which you see on them. It's an act of love. Show and Tell focuses on the black male body, and interestingly, the faces of the sitters, as you can see here, are obscured. We either see the back of their heads or the clothes that they wear. And this series was begun in a residency in Johannesburg, South Africa in 2008, but also continued in a residency at the New Art Gallery in Warsaw. She would invite the sitters into her studio, speak to them in terms of on the themes of self-expression and identity, while photographing them and drawing them from life. And for Walker, the series considers, quote, stereotyping and how people are looked upon or perceived through their clothing. We finally get to the Turner nominated Burden of Proof, a series of drawings that responded to the Windrush scandal. And in Walker's own words, the exhibition tells us she said, having placed the burden of proof on individuals, the Home Office demanded to see evidence that would prove their right to remain in the UK. These mundane, forgotten pieces of paper have now become the oppressive instruments to provide their legitimacy. Yet, the documents reveal how these individuals have contributed to this country. They're not statistics on a piece of paper. These are real lives. There's a deliberate tension in the overlapping of the documents with the figure in the drawing, reflecting how these documents became more important than the individuals. These layered drawings, showing off Walker's skill as an artist, are incredibly effective. And the huge charcoal wall drawing is different to the one I showed you from the Turner Prize in 2023. While these works will remain, the huge charcoal drawing will be washed away from the walls of the Whitworth at the end of the run of this show, just like it has been everywhere else that it's been shown. And this for Walker is a kind of ritual linking to memory and the process of forgetting, which she refers to in many of her other works that you've seen during this show. Burden of Proof isn't the latest work to be produced in this show, but it's a fitting narrative end to what is a really, really powerful survey. I'm sure you'll agree.
Well, I hope that gave you a sense of Barbara Walker being here from the Whitworth Gallery in Manchester. And first of all, I must say, what a pleasure it was to be back at the Whitworth Gallery. I haven't been since before the pandemic, and this was the first time I covered the gallery on the vlog. And so it was really special to be in those lovely, airy galleries again. I'm very jealous of Mancunians who have this regularly accessible on their doorstep. And I definitely will be back much sooner than the last time I visited when new shows are up and coming. I always think about these major shows in terms of the good, the bad, and the beautiful. And if we start with the good, this survey show gave us a real chance to explore the full range of Barbara Walker's work and confirmed what a major British artist she is. I'd seen bits and pieces, but nowhere near lots of the range that was on show here before. And so it's a real pleasure to be able to see how her career has developed and evolved and gone down different avenues of interest over the years that she's been an artist in production. I thought that after the first room, which I was really intrigued by, these paintings from Private Face, we moved towards a much more signature style where she's using official documentation, paintings, to try and literally challenge narratives, history, and present reality in some cases within Britain. It's art which combines technical excellence with this activist edge, and I find that incredibly compelling. I mean, highlights included the Vanishing Point paintings where she confronts Western European art, but also the Polite Violence works, which I found just so emotional. They're some of her greatest works, and obviously Burden of Proof as well. She's, in my mind, a great artist, really important in Britain, and it's interesting that more and more British galleries are picking up her work, and from Wolverhampton through to the Fitzwilliam and Tate, then that will no doubt continue, because quite a few of these works were still courtesy of the artist or in private collections. But I hope more and more of her work can get into public collections so we can all learn from it and get it. In terms of the bad,
I have to confess, I have found the shock and awe section less convincing and consequently less compelling than lots of the other series. And I think this because it treated war from 1914 through to now as a homogeneous, unmoving block. And so the art failed to recognise some of the change that's occurred and some of the nuances. There's clearly no doubt, as Walker points out, that the contributions of troops from around the empire to victory in both World War One and World War Two has been both underreported until very recently and underappreciated as well. But I would argue through cases like Johnson Berry winning the Victoria Cross, or growing recognition after a campaign led by Joanna Lumley of the contribution of the Gurkhas, means that while racism is undoubtedly still an issue in the armed forces, there is also a growing appreciation for the diversity that makes up the armed forces. And that's why I found works like this, which imposed the face of a relatively contemporary soldier on a piece of older propaganda, didn't work as quite as powerfully. I was also a bit puzzled by this work, which saw a pacifist newspaper, Englishmen, do your duty and keep your country out of a wicked and stupid war. This is from 1914, so a major headline, and how it linked to the image below and what the artist was trying to say with this work and how it fitted in to the theme of the whole as well.
And in terms of the beautiful, I love the soft power wallpaper. I think the most powerful work was, for me, the Polite Violence work, because it was so charged. But I would absolutely love to have this gorgeous wallpaper from Soft Power. And it was kind of a more positive response to Burden of Proof, which is a very heavy work. So I absolutely love that. Overall, though, I just love the fact that Barbara Walker's an artist who works in kind of series. She gets a theme which interests her and is really important, and then mines the seam of that theme in multiple different ways. And so as a result, it was a really satisfying survey, one of the most satisfying I've been to, because you go through these different themes and you get immersed in different interests that she had, and you get to see how she explored that. So overall, I give it an 8.5 out of 10. I think a free show is just absolutely wonderful value. It is on until the 26th of January. So if you're up in Manchester, I thoroughly recommend that you go. Don't forget that this is transferring to Bristol to the Arnolfini Gallery in 2025. So we're going to get a very well deserved double dose of Barbara Walker's excellence. Thank you ever so much for watching. Do subscribe and hit that notification bell for many more upcoming vlogs, including a real focus on the Renaissance as we come into November. Most of all, don't forget to get out there and explore and support your local art scene wherever you live in the world.